Uh, I'd like to introduce our keynote this evening, Jerry Hultin. Jerry has had a very distinguished career, and I use Jerry's example as somebody all the time because I really believe careers should not be linear. You should try new things in life, having gone through that, and he sets a great example of that. Jerry started off in the U.S. Navy, was in a law firm, was a partner in a law firm in Ohio, ran President Clinton's Ohio campaign, was on the board of Freddie Mac, then was the Undersecretary of the Navy for President Clinton from 1997 to 2000, and then decided academia was his calling, and was at Stevens Tech, and then was president of Polytechnic Brooklyn, in 2005, and then sort of engineered the merger with NYU. And lo and behold, he's here this evening to help us get this site off the ground. Jerry, can we have you here?
So I want to set the stage for why a magazine like this is so important. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about, you're going to say, well, I already know that, but I'm going to try to at least focus your mind on these things. So about a year ago, I was having dinner with Jeremy Grantham. Jeremy Grantham is like Warren Buffett, manages about $100 billion of funds, thinks about the future of the world, what's going to happen. And he had an interesting insight. He says, Jerry, do you realize that if all 9 billion people on Earth, and there's expected to be about 9 billion by 2050, if all 9 billion of those people consumed resources and made waste like a U.S. citizen does, how many Earths would it take to provide the resources and absorb the waste of those 9 billion people? So I'm open for guesses. How many Earths would it take? 1, 4, 5, 100? All right. He did the math. He says 6. Okay. But 6 is a pretty daunting problem because, as I often say to high school students when I'm talking to them about their future life, I say, here's 6 Earths, and you now have to invent the things that do away with 5 of those Earths so that we can all live on one Earth, have enough resources, and consume the waste we create to have a happy life for 9 billion people. That's a big challenge, from 6 to 1 in 40 years. That's what we've got to do. The only way we're going to get there is to use science and technology to dramatically reduce the amount of energy we use, the amount of product we consume, the amount of waste we generate. And without that, we stand to have an Earth 50 years from now which is an angry, polluted, unhappy place because 9 billion people will not want to live in the Earth that I'm describing does not solve those problems. That's the challenge young people have, and that's why, number one reason why education is so important. The second is, think of this. In the next 30 years, between just China and India, nearly 1 billion people will move from rural impoverishment to urban, what we will call middle class. Now that move may be a very successful move into cities that are vibrant, traffic flows, pollution doesn't coat it, cultural life's exciting. Those 1 billion people will be citizens that tolerate their government, enjoy life, and say, this is all right. This is what I expected life to be like. But if the cities that are built in the next 30 years are misbuilt, and we'll build more cities in the next 40 years than have ever been built on Earth, and we won't get the chance to build those cities again probably for 100, 200, 300 years. So what we do with cities in the next 30 to 40 years shapes the basically destiny of India and China. And all the data so far is not that good. China just had in Beijing their 6-month traffic jam. Well, why have a car if you've got a 6-month traffic jam? I looked out at the skyline today in New Delhi, and I'd say this reminds me of how Los Angeles felt in 1965 when I was a young naval officer. A cone in which I can see that's about 10 blocks big I don't want to go running. I'm a jogger. I'm not jogging in New Delhi. The naval attaché for the Chinese Navy was in Washington with me. He'd had 10 years in Washington, D.C. He got reassigned to go back to Beijing. He whispers to me as he leaves, Jerry, I don't want to go back. I says, why is that? It's dirty there. This is the problem. This is the way citizens will feel if we don't build great cities. And how are we going to do that? Educated people who make great decisions, who use science and technology to solve these problems. So second great reason for having great education. Now the final one I'm going to bring to just focus your mind is bring you home to India. And Harjiv already laid the foundation for this. India has a great opportunity. Remember, China's population is, we would argue, upside down. More old than young, same as the United States, same as Europe. The one place in the world that's not upside down is India, where the youth outnumber the old. That's a great potential. In fact, Goldman Sachs does an analysis of global growth and gives India a 4% growth bump above the expected growth of other countries because of this youth population. But let me ask you, if you do not educate this 50% of the population in the next 20 years, will this be a growth bump or a growth deficit? In which, again, think of the difference. All those young people educated to be entrepreneurs, to be technicians, to be doctors, to be scientists, to be educators, that's a country you'd love to live in, right? Youthful, vibrant, moving forward, place that you'll see Americans more and more say, I'm moving to India to cast my fortune. You'll see Indians coming back from America. But if you don't educate those young people, where will they be? They'll be in the sort of French model at the barricades. They'll be protesting the poverty they live in. They'll be saying to you, you let me down. You told me this was democracy that could be different, that recognized the value of an individual, and you didn't deliver on that promise. And this will be an unhappy country. And interestingly, India is the balance to China in Asia. And if you don't educate these young people and create a vibrant economy, you won't be the balance to China. China will be the power. And maybe Japan will be a balance, maybe we'll be a balance, but you won't. So even geopolitics relates to whether or not you educate the 10-year-old who's in grade school right now, whose future depends on what we do. And in fact, that's why brain gain has got such powerful potential if you think about it, because if you were solving the education problems of India, there would not be this draw of saying, I will pay American tuition to go to American schools to get an education. But that problem is not going to get solved in the next 5 to 10 years, and it's an enormous problem anyway. So there will always be an interest in coming to America and to Europe and to Australia. And so brain gain has got a fabulous role to play, which is for those who are ready to get a great education and can find the wherewithal either from personal wealth or from scholarships they earn because of the brightness of their brain, come to Europe, the United States, other parts of Asia, Australia. This is a great way to begin actually sending a message two ways. One is there's great education to have around the world, become a global citizen. And two, it's a message to India, increase the opportunities within India for education so that the need to go to an international school is reduced. So there's a fabulous reason to have this magazine because it sets in motion opportunity and it sets the challenge in place for India. Now, this is an interesting world we live in, right? And I think you all would agree. The globalization has entirely changed how our young people's lives will be led. This is the right step at the right time. Harjiv, I congratulate you on having an idea that you took to fruition. Many people have ideas. They stay on the kitchen table. You had an idea and you brought it to reality, and congratulations. So with that, I hope we have a great panel, but I think we're at a point where education is going to step up to essentially solve the problems the world faces. We're going to need your help to do it. And I'm glad to have both the Department of Education, the Department of State, leaders in India here working today trying to figure out that solution. So thank you for having me. Thank you for listening, and enjoy tonight.